Hey Reddit, I need your advice on a situation that's happened with me and my fiance Mark that has shaken me to my very core. For context, Mark and I met a few years ago while we both were visiting Scotland. I was on a solo vacation there as it had always been on my bucket list. Being an architect, this trip was a well deserved break from my high pressure job. During one of my days of exploring Scotland, it started raining suddenly while I was out shopping. As I scrambled to find cover, I noticed this charming little coffee shop at the corner. I rushed to get inside when I noticed a man who seemed to be blind fumbling with his umbrella at the door. I saw that he had a guide dog, so I kindly offered to help him out and open the door for him. Little did I know that this chance encounter with this stranger would turn into something so incredibly meaningful. He introduced himself as Mark, and we struck up a conversation during that rainy afternoon. His incredible personality, ability to crack light-hearted jokes, and unwavering kindness drew me to him like a magnet. We learned that we were both from the States, so we met up a couple of times over the next few days while I was in Scotland. I noticed that I really enjoyed spending time with him and Luna, his guide dog, who was absolutely adorable. Mark, it turns out, was a single dad who had recently gone through a tough divorce with his ex-wife, Maggie. Following the divorce, she made the decision to move to Mexico with their daughter, Lily, who was 14 at the time. She did this so her family could assist her in raising their daughter full time. Mark really seemed to miss and talked about Lily all the time. He would share stories about her birth and the time they spent together before the divorce. Unfortunately, after this tough time, Mark also lost both his parents to a tragic accident. They left him behind a substantial fortune which enabled him to pursue his passion for music. He showed me all the songs he had written over the years and seemed to be really talented. When we both were back in the States, we continued to meet up and I could see myself falling for him. We took it slow as he had just been through a divorce and I wanted to take my time to get to know him completely. After 2 years of dating, Mark surprised me with a proposal in our favorite cafe. I didn't see it coming, but I said yes right away. I knew in my heart that this was the man I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. What made the moment even more special was that Mark had secretly flown in my parents and some of my friends to be there and celebrate with us. It was an incredible surprise that made the occasion even more memorable. Soon after the proposal, Mark asked me to move in with him. It was easier for me to move into his building, which already had accessibility features that made it easier for individuals with visual impairments like him to navigate and use the space. So I moved in and we split the rent and other expenses. Our life together was going smoothly and we were happy. Throughout our relationship, I have seen Mark try his best to reconnect with his daughter, but to no avail. Whenever he tried calling his ex-wife, the call used to go unanswered or she had some excuses so as to not allow him to talk to their daughter. He wrote countless letters hoping for a reply, but it broke my heart to see that she never wrote back. I always tried to comfort him, telling him that when she turned 18, she would surely want to reconnect. A few months ago, out of nowhere, something peculiar began to happen. Unmarked letters started showing up on our doorstep. The first time it happened, Mark asked me to check for a return address, but the letter had only Braille writing inside and Mark written on the cover. Mark read the letter and his face lit up with joy as he told me that it was from his daughter, Lily. I checked the letter and it seemed like his daughter had finally decided to reach out to him. I found it really sweet that she was learning Braille to communicate with him. The letters kept coming every week and Mark would eagerly read each one, convinced that they were from Lily. He would tell me stories from the letters about how she was doing well, how she missed him, and how she wanted to see him soon. The letters talked about mending the long broken bond between father and daughter. It was heartwarming, and I hoped that this was indeed a fresh start for them. But as the letters continued to arrive without any address mentioned, my suspicions slowly started to grow. Something about them started to not sit right with me. I checked again, and the braille writing inside seemed unusually perfect, almost as if it was professionally done. I couldn't help but wonder if these letters were genuine or if there was more to the story. I knew I had to investigate further, not just for my peace of mind, but to protect Mark from any potential harm. I told Mark repeatedly to ask Maggie directly regarding this, but he seemed convinced that it was his daughter writing him letters. He was afraid that his ex-wife would stop their daughter from sending letters if she found out about it. Eventually, Mark received a letter where his daughter claimed that she wanted to meet him at a diner that weekend. He was overjoyed, and the anticipation was palpable in his voice when he told me. I couldn't bear to dampen his spirits, but something inside me just couldn't shake the doubt. I had another concern, which was that Mark didn't have a photograph of his daughter. During the divorce, Maggie had taken all the family photos with her, likely due to her resentment towards Mark. This meant that I had no clear idea of what she looked like either. I insisted Mark on reaching out to his ex-wife this time just to double check with her. I reminded him that it's crucial to verify this, given the years of silence between him and his daughter. Mark reluctantly decided to make the call, but it went straight to voicemail as usual. He left a message asking his ex-wife to call him back so they could discuss their daughter, Lily. Now, the weekend finally arrived, and Mark was filled with anticipation as he got ready to meet his supposed daughter, Lily. He had asked me to accompany him, and we both headed to the diner where Lily had mentioned in her letter that she would be meeting him. We arrived a little early, as Mark was really excited to meet her after so many years. I could see him repeatedly checking the time on his braille watch, hoping that this long-awaited moment would soon become a reality. We sat there, sipping our coffee and anxiously waiting for her. I kept my eyes on the entrance, wondering what would happen when Lily walked through the door, if she would at all. Suddenly, a young woman entered the cafe. She matched the vague description of what Mark had provided me. Short, with long brown hair. Her eyes met Mark, and she walked over to greet him. Mark reached out to hug her, but her demeanor seemed distant, almost rehearsed. I observed her closely and noticed how her voice seemed oddly familiar, but I couldn't quite tell for sure. She turned to me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, shook hands with me, and sat down opposite us. Lily and Mark began to catch up while I went to order a coffee for her. They started discussing their past, Lily's life in Mexico, and how much Mark had missed her. Lily's responses seemed rehearsed, as if she was telling Mark what he wanted to hear. Her stories didn't quite add up, and there was a certain disconnect in her demeanor. Mark's voice, on the other hand, was filled with pride and longing, and it was clear that he believed this was the moment he had been waiting for. But the longer I watched, the more I noticed inconsistencies, and something about her account kept sounding oddly familiar. She told him how her mother refused to let her talk with him, so she had been secretly sending him letters in braille. She decided to buy a one-way plane ticket after she turned 18 so she could visit him and hopefully spend some time with him now. Mark was overjoyed after hearing that. He looked ready to embrace Lily and rebuild their relationship. He even invited her to our home to live with us during her visit here, eager to introduce her to Luna. His loyal guide dog, and show her the life we had built together. She, on the other hand, just nodded in agreement. After our meeting, the three of us walked back to our apartment when I suddenly remembered that we were out of milk, eggs, and a few other things. I told Mark that I needed to make a quick trip to the local store so I could cook Lily her favorite dinner. I wanted to be a good host and extend Lily the hospitality she deserved, even if I wasn't sure if she truly was Mark's daughter. In the store, while I loaded my cart with groceries, the conversation with Mark and Lily kept replaying in my mind. Mark had shared with me so much about his ex-wife and their daughter, but there was an undeniable unease about her that I couldn't quite put my finger on. I kept getting the feeling that I had heard her voice somewhere before. As I was walking back to my car with bags in hand, it suddenly hit me like a lightning bolt. Her voice was hauntingly familiar, and the memory of where I had heard it before washed over me. You see, just a few months ago, I received a call while I was away on a work trip. The caller claimed to be from my bank, stating that my card was under suspicion for unusual activity. They had asked me to confirm certain personal details like addresses and phone numbers in order to protect my card from being suspended. At the time, it seemed harmless, and I willingly provided the information they asked for. But when I returned from my trip and contacted my bank, they informed me that this was a common scam. Scammers like her trick people into revealing their personal information by pretending to be calling from the bank. I have always felt ashamed since then for falling for such a stupid but obvious scam. The realization struck me that Lily's voice sounded just like the woman who had called me, posing as my bank's customer support. It was a chilling connection as I pieced together how she had found out about our address so that she could send the letters. I knew I had to rush back to warn Mark that his fake daughter was a scammer before something happened to him. I hurried back home with the groceries in hand, almost jogging to reach our building. I heard Luna's frantic barking echoing in the corridor as I approached. I felt a deep sense of foreboding as I noticed our door slightly opened, ajar, and I knew immediately something was wrong. I put the groceries down and gripped my phone in my hand so I could call for help in case something was wrong. My heart was racing, and I pushed open the door to be met with a scene of chaos. Our entire house was ransacked, with belongings strewn haphazardly. Mark was lying on the floor, blood seeping from a wound on his head. Luna was barking in distress, helplessly, clearly agitated by the intrusion. I immediately rushed to Mark's side, checking for signs of life, my hands trembling. When I realized that he was still breathing, I immediately dialed 911 for help. The police and paramedics arrived on the scene immediately. I provided a statement to the police describing the scammer who had posed as a supposed daughter to my blind fiancé, the potential connection to the past scam call, and the chaos that had unfolded when I left to buy groceries. I felt racked with guilt for having left my fiancé alone during the incident, but the police quickly reassured me that it might have been the safest course of action. They emphasized that had I been there, the intruder might have resorted to more violence or even worse, taken me as a hostage. They seemed to think that Mark's blindness may have been the sole reason he was left unharmed, as the intruder likely believed he wouldn't be able to identify them. I spent the entire night at the hospital, anxiously awaiting Mark's recovery. I called my parents, and as I recounted the terrifying events, they were shocked and concerned for me. They promised to catch the first flight to be by my side. I decided to leave a message to his ex-wife regarding what happened in the hopes that she would eventually reach out. I felt because they shared a child together, she had the right to know. When Mark finally regained consciousness, I rushed to his aid, wanting to reassure him that I was there and that things were going to be okay. He complained of a pounding headache, but said that otherwise he felt okay. His first question was about Lily's whereabouts, and I hesitated before recounting the events. To my surprise, Mark's reaction was not what I had expected. Instead of relief, he grew visibly angry. He criticized my decision to involve the police, expressing his fear that they might arrest his daughter and subject her to severe charges. He believed that she had fallen into the wrong hands and was afraid that something might happen to her. I tried to explain that she wasn't truly his daughter, that this was all an elaborate scam, but he vehemently defended her. He argued that she must be his daughter because of everything she had talked about from their past. I argued back, saying that the memories she mentioned seemed too vague and non-specific to be convincing. Mark seems adamant about his stance regarding this situation and refuses to talk to me. I'm not convinced that I'm at fault here, so I'm turning to Reddit for advice. Have I done something wrong by reporting my fiance's supposed daughter for being a scammer and potentially being involved in the robbery? Update 1. It's only been a few hours since I posted this, and it's been overwhelming to say the least. My post seems to have gone viral, and I have been flooded with messages and requests from strangers, all requesting an update. As many of you suspected, just like me, it turns out the supposed daughter was indeed a fake, a fact confirmed by the police who reviewed our building's CCTV footage. They discovered that when Mark allowed the woman inside, there was a man who was hiding in the bushes, and he sneaked into the building with her. The police could quickly identify her as she was already on their records for other house invasions and petty theft. The police questioned Mark about what happened once they were inside. Mark explained that he had told her to make herself comfortable while he went to his room to change, and that's when he heard loud noises from the living room and his guide dog Luna howling in pain. Mark entered the room bewildered, but he was suddenly struck with a loud object. He could feel blood running down his face as he lost consciousness and didn't remember anything after that. I have handed over all the letters we received from the woman to the police. It felt sad to see that Mark had kept all of them, believing they were from his daughter Lily. My parents arrived, and my mother couldn't hold back her tears when she saw all the police activity and Mark's condition in the hospital. My father is deeply concerned and has told me that I was incredibly lucky not to have been present during the robbery. After hearing what the police had to say regarding the woman, Mark is slowly starting to believe that he might have been wrong all along. My heart breaks for him, as I know all he wanted was to reconnect with his daughter. He has since offered me a heartfelt apology for snapping at me earlier. I understood that he was upset to be confronted with the truth that this was all a deception. It's a tough pill to swallow for someone who had waited for years to reconnect with his daughter. Now we are looking to the police for updates on the situation. I'll keep you all posted as soon as I hear more. Update 2. I'm back as promised with an update. In just a few weeks, my once seemingly perfect life was turned upside down by this incident. We cooperated with the police in the aftermath of the incident, answering their questions to the best of our ability as they sought to gather more details. Fortunately, with the help of video footage and our statements, they were able to identify the second suspect. It was revealed that both the man and the woman were part of a larger organized group that had been running these scams for a significant period. Their elaborate scam involved making phone calls to individuals and extracting personal information, which they then used to track their victims' locations and plan their actions. These criminals were professionals, adept at home invasion, and did their research on how to deceive people. They had meticulously followed our movements over months and gathered significant knowledge about our lives before the woman, pretending to be my fiance's daughter, reached out to us. They found out about his daughter from the public records available and also knew about the fact that she lived in Mexico with his ex-wife. Given my fiance's wealth, they intended to rob him, and they would have probably killed me if I had tried to stop them. They might have also hacked into Mark's phone, which let them find out that he wasn't in contact with his daughter currently. Fortunately, the police were already investigating this group for a long time, so they were aware of some of their tactics and capabilities. The woman had been arrested, and the police are actively searching for her partner. We have learned from the police that this duo had scouted our building and noticed the malfunctioning camera, which led them to quickly plan a meeting with my fiancé and me. But what they didn't know was I had repeatedly complained to the building manager about the broken camera, which had prompted him to repair the camera that very same day. Fortunately for us, this helped the police catch the criminals and bust their entire operation. In the aftermath of this terrible ordeal, our lives are slowly returning to some semblance of normalcy, although it is going to be a long way to recovery after what we have been through. Mark is still coming to terms with the fact that he was deceived and nearly victimized by these scammers. The emotional toll on him has been substantial, but we're working through it together, taking each day as it comes. As for Mark's real daughter, The one he so desperately wished to reconnect with finally gave him a call. You see, after I had left a message for his ex-wife, she called me back sounding really concerned. I had filled her in on what happened and she was in disbelief. She assured me that Lily was safe with her in Mexico and she was relieved that Mark was alive and safe. I guess the incident really shook her up because in the days that followed, she called me regularly asking for an update on the situation. She told me how she never meant to keep her away from him. Because they had such a nasty divorce, she was angry towards Mark, but because of the incident, she realized what a huge mistake it was. Mark and his daughter spoke for the first time in years, and I watched as he struggled to hold back tears. I couldn't help but feel relieved that there was something positive coming out of this horrendous situation. His ex-wife has promised us that she would be flying with Lily as soon as she can get a break from her work so that they can all meet and reconnect. Lily calls her dad regularly now, so I am hoping that their relationship will continue to grow stronger. As for me, I'm doing okay. Or at least that's what I keep telling myself. I can't help but wonder what might have happened if I had been present during the invasion. Since returning home after Mark's discharge, we have installed additional security cameras and automatic sensors in our home to ensure our safety and peace of mind. My parents stayed with me throughout this period and only returned to their homes once I convinced them that I was feeling much better. Despite a few skeptics, the support and advice I have received from Reddit community these past few days has been invaluable. Mark and I are grateful for every word of encouragement and guidance we have received, and we hope that by sharing this we can raise awareness about these types of scams and prevent others from falling victim to similar schemes. Thank you all for your support, and we'll keep you updated as we move forward. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update and I am finally back. I kept away from updating this post as I needed time to move forward in my life. Since my last post, Mark is no longer my fiancé. He is my husband now. That's right. I have been married for 2 months now, and I have never been happier in my life. We realized that after all that we've been through, our love runs deeper than ever. We had a small, intimate ceremony with close family and friends where we tied the knot. Mark's ex-wife and Lily did come to visit us as they had promised. We went to pick them up from the airport, and the moment Lily saw Mark, she ran into his arms, and I could feel how much they had missed each other. Maggie, Mark's ex-wife, turned out to be a wonderful person and repeatedly apologized to Mark for keeping Lily away from him after their divorce. I later learned the reason behind her harsh decisions. You see, when Mark and Maggie got married, they had discussed not having children. Mark has a genetic disease that eventually caused him to lose his sight despite multiple operations and treatments, and he was afraid of passing it on to a child. But one day Maggie discovered that she was pregnant, and when she told him, he was really upset. She was worried that the baby might inherit his condition and it would ruin their child's life. Although Lily seemed perfectly healthy when she was born, Mark couldn't shake the guilt that she might eventually develop the same symptoms that had afflicted him. This burden of guilt weighed heavily on him, which hindered him from connecting with his daughter as a father should. He was racked with remorse every day, believing he had passed his blindness on to his beloved child. This, among other issues over the years, eventually led to Mark and Maggie's divorce. Since Mark was blind, he couldn't take care of the child on his own, so custody was granted to Maggie completely. I could empathize with both of them, understanding the pain they experienced as parents in such a difficult situation. Lily has expressed to us her wish to shift to the States so she can pursue her education here. She seems to have fallen in love with our way of life and has noticed how much more comfortable people live here. Lily believes that pursuing her education in the U.S. will open up new opportunities and a brighter future for her. We wholeheartedly agreed and let her know that our home is always open to her so she can stay with us for as long as she wants. Mark and I are going to check out universities she can apply to, and we'll talk to our lawyers about her visa. Maggie is on board as long as it makes Lily happy. Now, onto the most crucial part of this story. The man, who was the mastermind behind the entire scam, was finally apprehended by the police. This was a significant breakthrough as the police could then crack down on the entire operation. Shockingly, we learned that 83 individuals had fallen victim to the scam just like us, and a few had even lost their lives. The scale of this criminal operation was truly shocking and deeply unsettling. I can't reveal anything further as advised by our lawyer. We will have to testify in court along with the other victims when this eventually goes to trial. I hope this is going to be my last update as I can move on in my life with my husband and put this horrendous incident behind us. With the mastermind behind bars, our home secured, and Lily reconnecting with her father, it feels like we're finally on the path to healing. We're excited about what lies ahead and the happiness we can create together. I can't thank you all enough for the support and advice you've given us throughout this ordeal. To everyone who reached out to me, your kindness and guidance have been invaluable. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.